Buried deep within our DNA are the ghosts of forgotten abilities, the blueprints for superpowers our bodies no longer build. We see ourselves as the pinnacle of evolution, but what if we are merely the edited version? A final draft where the most astonishing chapters have been deleted. Our bodies are living museums, filled with silent, dormant artifacts of a wilder past. Today, we open the doors to that museum and rediscover 9 incredible powers your body lost to the relentless march of time. Our journey begins with a lost sense, a power of perception so profound it borders on the psychic. Imagine possessing a superpower that allowed you to smell emotions, to detect fear, attraction, and danger as clearly as you can smell smoke on the wind. Your ancient ancestors possessed this ability thanks to a remarkable piece of biological hardware called the vomeronasal organ. Picture a tiny, specialized chemical detector hidden within the nasal cavity, an antenna array for the invisible world. While we navigate social cues through body language and tone of voice, our distant grandparents read invisible chemical messages floating through the air. This organ was tuned to perceive pheromones, the silent language of the animal kingdom. It was like having X-ray vision, but for the soul. The ability to sense a rival's aggression before a fight, or a potential mate's compatibility from across a clearing. This organ still exists inside your skull, a relic of a more intuitive time. It sits there like a disconnected piece of technology, all the components in place, but with the power switched off. Evolution, in its infinite and often brutal wisdom, deemed it unnecessary for our survival. Yet, some scientists speculate it isn't entirely dead. That inexplicable feeling of instant attraction, or the unshakable bad vibe you get from a stranger, could it be the faint whisper of your vomeronasal organ, picking up on ancient signals from a world we can no longer see? Next, we look down at our feet, tools we now use for walking, running, and occasionally kicking things. But look closer at your big toe. It was once a thumb. This isn't a metaphor. Your ancestors possessed a true foot hand. While we struggle to clumsily pick up a dropped sock with our toes, our predecessors were using their foot thumbs as a second pair of fully functional hands. Visualize an ancient forest canopy. An early hominid moves with an alien grace, their big toe angled out to the side, exactly like a thumb. Their feet were not platforms for walking, but prehensile tools for gripping. They could grasp branches, swing through trees, and manipulate objects with an agility we can barely comprehend. When a predator appeared on the forest floor, having 4 hands instead of 2 meant a swift, life-saving ascent into the safety of the trees. These foot thumbs were the key to survival, keeping our lineage off the menu. But evolution presented our ancestors with a critical choice: maintain their arboreal agility or conquer the open plains. The ground won. That opposable toe slowly, generation by generation, migrated into line with the other digits, creating a powerful, rigid platform for bipedal running. We gained the ability to sprint, to hunt across vast distances, and eventually to invent marathon running. Some of our primate cousins rejected this trade-off, and to this day, they swing through the trees, grabbing branches with their feet, while we are left using long-handled tools to retrieve the remote control from under the couch. Let's consider the modern ideal of physical fitness, often represented by a lean, sculpted physique. But before our obsession with low body fat, our ancestors cultivated a physique that would today be labeled the original dad bod. They carried massive guts, so large that their very skeletons had to adapt. We're talking about bellies that would put a celebratory feast to shame, housed within rib cages that were shaped not like barrels, but like giant funnels. These weren't guts born of inactivity and poor diet. They were highly efficient, industrial-grade fermentation tanks. Think of them as walking breweries. Their diet consisted of the toughest materials nature had to offer: fibrous tree bark, gritty tubers, and coarse grasses. This was food that would shatter our teeth and send our digestive systems into revolt. To survive on such a diet, their bodies evolved these enormous guts to slowly ferment and break down nutrients for materials tougher than leather. In that era, a massive gut was the pinnacle of performance. It was a sign of resilience, a declaration that you could survive on the most meager, low-quality food when times were tough. It was a superpower that allowed you to extract energy from what was essentially cardboard. While we count calories and strive for a flat stomach, our ancestors deliberately cultivated the largest gut possible. Having a six-pack back then was a sign of fragility, an advertisement that you would be the first to perish in a famine. That physique you might be trying to lose is a tribute to an evolutionary legacy, millions of years in the making. Now, let's turn to a feature that sounds like it belongs in a fantasy novel, the skull mohawk. Imagine a natural ridge of solid bone running down the center of your skull. Not a hairstyle, but a permanent anatomical crest. Our ancient relatives, like Paranthropus boisei, sported this feature, known as a sagittal crest. This wasn't for show. It was a critical piece of engineering. It served as a powerful anchor point for jaw muscles so massive they defied belief. These were muscles that could generate incredible force, capable of crushing hard nuts, grinding tough roots, and shearing through raw, sinewy meat as if it were soft fruit. The muscles were so enormous, they literally ran out of attachment space on a normal skull, requiring this bony extension to anchor their immense power. Think about trying to eat a raw, uncooked animal leg with your current jaw structure. You would fail. But for our ancestors, equipped with a sagittal crest and the muscles it supported, this was simply lunch. Then came a revolutionary discovery, the control of fire. Cooking transformed our diet. Tough meat became tender. Rock-hard plants became soft and digestible. The need for those bone-crushing jaws vanished. Evolution, ever the pragmatist, looked at the bone mohawk and decommissioned it. The ridge slowly disappeared, the massive muscles atrophied, and we were left with these comparatively weak jaws that sometimes struggle with a tough piece of steak. Gorillas still carry this trait. The next time you see one, observe that bony ridge on its skull. That is the raw power we traded for the convenience of a cooked meal. Our faces are canvases of emotion, capable of expressing a universe of feeling. But what if your face was permanently locked into an expression of aggression? Our ancestors lived with this reality, thanks to a massive shelf-like brow ridge of bone that loomed over their eyes. This wasn't a subtle frown. It was a genetically mandated scowl, a feature that made them look perpetually ready for conflict. It cast a permanent shadow over their eyes, giving them the appearance of someone squinting into a harsh sun while contemplating violence. Early theories suggested this ridge was armor for the skull or a brace against the stress of their powerful jaws. But the structure was overkill for such purposes. The more compelling theory is that its primary function was intimidation. The heavy brow was nature's version of a battle mask. It was a non-verbal signal that screamed, "I am formidable. Do not test me." In a world where preventing a fight was far safer than winning one, having a built-in look of intimidation was a significant survival advantage. But as human societies grew more complex, we needed more than just a single, aggressive signal. We needed nuance. Try to build alliances, raise a family, or cooperate on a hunt when your face is permanently stuck on threat display mode. It's not efficient. And so, evolution began to smooth out our foreheads, retracting the brow ridge and giving us the gift of mobile, expressive eyebrows. Now, we can convey surprise, empathy, curiosity, and the entire spectrum of social emotions. But one has to wonder if, in our complicated modern world, life would be simpler with a permanent "Do Not Disturb" sign built directly into our skulls. Imagine standing up and having your arms hang so low that your fingertips nearly brush your knees. This wasn't due to poor posture. It was the standard build for our ancestors. They were built like modern-day orangutans, with incredibly long arms and curved fingers that functioned like permanent grappling hooks. While a modern human might struggle to hang from a pull-up bar for a minute, our ancestors could likely hang and swing all day without fatigue. This was their superhighway. The forest canopy was a world away from the dangers of the ground, where predators lurked. A life spent swinging from branch to branch was a life of relative safety. Their entire upper body was a masterpiece of arboreal engineering. Flexible, powerful shoulder joints designed for a 360-degree range of motion. Long, powerful arms for reach. And those curved fingers, which could lock into a grip with minimal effort, like built-in carabiners. But then, we made the fateful decision to become ground dwellers. Those long, gangling arms became a hindrance, an awkward liability when trying to run or walk efficiently. We traded our tree-swinging superpower for shorter arms that were better suited for making and throwing tools, for carrying resources, and eventually, for typing on a keyboard. We lost our personal highway in the trees, but we gained the ability to shape the world on the ground. Listen to the sound of my voice. The ability to produce these deep, resonant, and complex sounds is a relatively new invention. Our more ancient relatives sounded as though they were permanently inhaling helium. Their voice box, or larynx, was positioned extremely high in their throat, rendering them incapable of producing deep sounds. Imagine a creature trying to sound intimidating when its voice is perpetually stuck in a high-pitched, squeaky register. This high larynx wasn't a flaw. It was a feature with a critical benefit. In dense forests, where visibility is limited, high-pitched sounds travel further and cut through ambient noise more clearly than deep rumbles. A single piercing shriek could serve as an alarm bell, an emergency broadcast system warning the entire tribe of approaching danger. The trade-off was a profoundly limited vocal range. They were confined to basic squeaks, shrieks, and calls, like a musician with a broken kazoo instead of a full orchestra. Over time, our larynx began its slow descent down the throat. This evolutionary shift opened up a resonant chamber, giving us the ability to create the vast array of sounds needed for complex language and even song. But this incredible upgrade came with a dangerous design flaw. By lowering the voice box, the pathways for breathing and swallowing now cross. Every time you choke on a drink of water, you are experiencing the consequence of this trade. Your squeaky-voiced ancestors, with their superior plumbing, never had that problem. Now, run your finger along your jawline to the point directly below your lower lip. That bony protrusion is your chin, and it is a uniquely human feature. We are the only species on Earth that has one. Not even our closest extinct relatives, the Neanderthals, had a true chin. It's just us. Intriguingly, human babies are born without them. The chin only emerges as we mature. For decades, scientists were baffled. Does it strengthen the jaw for chewing? No. Does it help us speak? Apparently not. Is it purely for aesthetic appeal? Perhaps, but that's unlikely to be its primary evolutionary driver. The truth appears to be that the chin is a complete accident. As human evolution progressed, our faces became shorter, flatter, and more compact. It's as if nature took the more projecting face of our ancestors and gently pushed it inward. As the rest of the face receded, the bottommost point of the lower jaw was left behind, jutting out to form the chin. This is a byproduct of what some call the domestication effect. As we became more social and less aggressive, our hormonal profiles changed, leading to more delicate, rounded facial features. The chin wasn't selected for. It just came along for the ride. Finally, we arrive at the most important organ of all, the brain. Our large, complex brain is our defining feature. But what if a smaller brain was actually better? Imagine walking around with a brain the size of a large orange. That's precisely what a group of our ancient human relatives did. On an island in Indonesia, archaeologists discovered the remains of a tiny human species, nicknamed hobbits. Their brains were a mere 1/3 the size of ours, a calculator compared to a supercomputer. But these hobbits were not unintelligent. They crafted sophisticated stone tools, hunted animals, and survived for thousands of years. They were running a super efficient operating system. Think of a modern smartphone. It doesn't need a car-sized battery if its software is perfectly optimized. The same principle applied to these ancient brains. They weren't bigger. They were simply better organized, consuming far less energy. In a world of scarce resources, having a smaller, more efficient brain was a massive advantage. But evolution chose a different path for our lineage. We didn't stick with the energy-efficient model. We went for the power-hungry, high-performance upgrade. We traded the reliable, long-lasting battery for a processor that could run more complex applications. We can now compose symphonies and design rockets, but we are also perpetually hunting for the immense amount of calories required to power this magnificent, energy-draining organ between our ears. Our journey through our own evolutionary past reveals a profound truth. We are not a finished product, but a mosaic of compromises, a story of trade-offs where incredible powers were exchanged for new advantages. The ghosts of these lost abilities remind us that to move forward, evolution always has to leave something behind. If you found this exploration of our hidden history fascinating, subscribe for more deep dives into the mysteries of science and the human story.